That rule exists because war is noisy. Reports clash. Radio traffic lies. Civilians misidentify convoys. Analysts smooth the chaos into estimates and probabilities. You trust the experts. You trust the skeptics. You trust the consensus. It keeps armies focused and prevents 100 false alarms from grinding logistics to a halt. For decades, Allied staffs had grown comfortable with their assumptions. Germany was beaten, reserves were scarce, any large enemy move would be detectable, obvious enough to stop. But in December 1944 one assumption will break like thin ice. In that winter, one intelligence officer sees 15 divisions vanish from the map. One general chooses to believe him. And 11 days of preparation, in secret, unpopular and disruptive, will turn what might have been catastrophe into a rescue. That moment changes the rule. Intelligence matters only when a leader turns it into action. You meet George S. Patton as a man who never relaxes even when everyone thinks he should. He is in his late 50s in December 1944, physical, impatient, with a face like weathered leather and a temper like steel. He is a soldier's soldier, direct, irreverent and impossible to ignore. Patton's credentials are visible in medals, campaigns, and a reputation that makes younger commanders both admire and resent him. He commands the Third Army, a force built to move fast, to exploit openings and to punish hesitation. Under his watch are armored divisions, trained logistics, and officers who have learned to act quickly. A few doors down from Patton sits Colonel Oscar W. Koch, precise, cerebral, an analyst who prefers maps and signals to bluster. Koch is Patton's G2, a professional who listens to radio nets, prisoner interrogations, train schedules, and the subtle rhythms of German logistics. Koch is not flashy. He is reliable and stubborn about patterns. The broader strategic moment is precarious. Allied forces push into the Rhineland and toward the German border in late 1944. Supplies stretch. German defenses appear thin in places. The Ardennes, a dense forested region south of the Belgian-Luxembourg border, is considered quiet, difficult terrain, and therefore unlikely for a major offensive in winter. Allied intelligence staff at SHEF, comfortable with the thesis that Germany is spent, annotate movements as shuffling or local reinforcement. The consensus is no offensive. Colonel Koch sees differently. In early December he notices anomalies, 15 divisions missing from their usual positions, not 10 squads or a regiment but whole divisions, some armored infantry, the kind of strength that could mount a major offensive. Radio traffic spikes. Train counts increase at rear depots. Prisoner interrogations hint at new troop arrivals. Civilians near the German lines report unusual activity behind the front. Koch's pattern recognition suggests offense, not defense. You know how the system works? Koch pushes his estimate up the chain. It reaches SHEF analysts who, steeped in a weary optimism, explain the disappearances as reserve allocations, reaction forces held back to counter Allied breakthroughs. The staff writes the most comforting story it can. Patton does not accept comfort. He trusts his G2 more than a distant staff's consensus. On December 9, Koch spreads his maps across Patton's desk and pronounces his judgment in plain language. The Germans are preparing a major counteroffensive through the Ardennes. He points to the thinly held sector where 4 American divisions hold a front that should require 12. He reminds Patton of 1940, when Germany had come through the Ardennes and wrecked French defenses. The thought sits like a stone in Patton's gut. Patton asks a direct question, when? Koch answers, within 2 weeks. That answer is the seed. Patton clocks the date, sees the mismatch between intent and the rest of the Allied world, and chooses a dangerous course. He will prepare to move before anyone orders him to move. He will turn intelligence into action. For the next 11 days, Third Army staffers build contingency plans in secret. Routes are plotted, fuel caches prepositioned, artillery batteries identified for rapid displacement, assembly areas selected, priority roads designated. Truck convoys are given time windows, bridge capacities are calculated, engineers mark alternative roads should snow and ice choke the main arteries. Patton orders 3 contingency plans, A, B, and C, for different axes of German attack. He does not publish the plans beyond those who must execute them. Every decision Patton makes is controversial. He is asking units to plan to disengage from offensive operations, to shorten attacks, and to be prepared to pivot north 100 miles on short notice. His senior commanders are puzzled. Their faces harden behind the maps. They suspect their general is making trouble. They worry about losing momentum at the worst possible moment. But they follow orders. because Patton is Patton and because strategy requires trust. At 3rd Army Headquarters in Nancy, the staff works through scenarios day and night. They calculate that to relieve the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, the likely German objective that Koch identifies, it will require moving 2 divisions in 48 hours, 3 divisions in 72, over 100 miles of bad winter roads. They examine fuel consumption rates for tanks. M4 Shermans burn hundreds of gallons per 100 miles. Each armored division needs thousands of gallons to move. They identify where fuel could be siphoned, which depots could be raided and resupplied, and how to thread heavy armor through small Belgian lanes. On December 15th, while the rest of the Allied command remains oblivious, 3rd Army sits prepared to execute. When the German attack hits on December 16th, thousands of artillery rounds flatten the Ardennes silence and thousands of men pour through the breach. The Allied front shudders. Some units collapse. The 106th Infantry Division is overrun. 2 regiments surrender in the largest mass surrender of American troops in the European theater. Casualties mount, communications fray, fear spikes. At SAF, the initial reports are dismissed as local counterattacks. It takes hours for the magnitude of the German offensive to become clear. By the time the alarm spreads, Patton is already moving. He had started because his G2 demanded the contingency. He had prepared because he distrusted easy assumptions. And when Eisenhower convenes the emergency conference at Verdun on December 19th, the generals sit around a long table and stare at a map that seems to be falling apart. Eisenhower asks the crucial question, how soon can someone attack north to relieve Bastogne? The room hesitates. Logistics, weather, distance, all scream impossible. Then Patton speaks. I can attack with 2 divisions in 48 hours. 3 divisions in 72 hours. The room goes silent, then incredulous. Patton is not bluffing. He is saying what he already prepared to do. The commander who already trusted his G2, and who spent 11 days turning warning into plans, will now turn plans into action. 48 hours. It is a jaw-dropping promise. Disengage 3 divisions engaged in offensive operations, rotate an entire army 90 degrees, move over 100,000 men and thousands of vehicles over narrow snow-clotted roads, and punch north through German-held territory to Bastogne. The other generals think it is reckless. You think it's audacious. Patton thinks it is necessary. He hangs up from the meeting and his voice over the wire is calm and brutal. Play ball. That phrase sets a clock in motion. It is not rhetoric. It is activation. Countdown, 48 hours, disengage and move. Hour 0, Patton issues orders. Truck convoys, some 133,000 vehicles cataloged in 3rd Army movement rosters, begin moving to pre-designated assembly points. Schedules roll through the lines. Bridges to cross, fuel points to draw from, routes to avoid because of weight limits. Supply officers cry out for fuel, for tires, for drivers. Engineers mark choke points. Hour 6, divisions begin to disengage. Combat units that hours before were fighting the SAR sector begin to unchain themselves. Men sling packs, load rations, fold maps. Tank crews pour cold oil into engines and hope they turn at first crank. The weather is murder. Snow, ice glazed over the roads, wind ripping at men's faces. Engines cough. Batteries fail. But the pre-planning means replacements are waiting at key nodes. Spare planks, tracks, and a procedure to push disabled vehicles to the flank. Hour 18. The lead elements of 4th Armored Division roll north on designated routes. They move in tight columns, controlled and noisy. Artillery pieces limber and tow. The hum of diesel becomes the song of movement. The column squeezes through villages, the nighttime French and Belgian bystanders stunned at the sight of Americans pivoting like a single living thing across the map. Fuel is rationed, drivers double up on shifts. Mechanics march alongside tanks like surgeons. Hour 30, radio calls crackle with updates. Patton's voice is steady, Spartan. Keep it tight. Keep it clean. Bastogne must not fall. He rides the phone circuits, speaking to division commanders, to corps, to logistics. He demands timetables and punishes delay. Men obey because the timetable is life. Hour 40. The columns are within 20 to 30 miles of their objectives. Weather and the enemy slow them, but the prepositioned fuel caches, the contingency bridges, the night routes planned around choke points make the difference. When a bridge is damaged, engineers have replacements waiting upstream. When trucks bog, battalion recovery details pull them free. Hour 48. Lead elements of the 4th Armored Division are within striking distance. The relief fight begins. You feel the ground shake under tank tracks. You hear the report of high-velocity guns, the cries of mortars, and the clanging of men clearing frozen mud. Snow crusts every bright surface. Breath becomes visible as men shout orders and pass ammunition. German defenders throw counterattacks to push the corridor closed. The Americans hold and pound back. Patton's rapid movement is a logistical masterpiece and a psychological blow. The Germans had assumed American recovery would be measured in a week or more. Instead, Patton slices through in days. The German timetable is wrong. The Siege of Bastogne, December 20th to 26th. Inside Bastogne, the 101st Airborne clings to its perimeter. Roads are clogged, supplies thin. Men are cold, hungry, and scraped raw from fighting days of infantry combat. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe receives a German surrender ultimatum on December 22 and answers with one word, nuts. The reply is a burst of defiant cold courage. Its legend grows, but its reality is more complicated. It is a refusal, a gamble, and a statement of will. Outside, Patton's columns fight through. Each mile is contested. Each village is a knife fight. Tanks clash in frozen fields. Infantry fights through hedgerows and barnyards. Casualties mount. Supply convoys weave down the narrow lanes into Bastogne, delivering ammunition, food, and medics. The first contact between relief and surrounded units happens on December 26, when Cobra King, the lead tank of the 4th Armored, links with the defenders. A single lead tank and a small patrol touch into Bastogne and the siege is broken. By 4:50 p.m. on December 26, the corridor is open. Supply convoys pour in. The 101st holds. The German offensive loses momentum. Patton calls Ike, "We're through." If the Germans had captured Bastogne, their plan to split the Allied armies might have succeeded. If Bastogne fell, the logistics of reaching Antwerp and the Channel would be easier and destruction easier for the Germans. But Patton's movement closes the German window and re-establishes perimeter control across the front. The moment failure looms. There is a moment on the night of December 20th when a supply convoy is ambushed on a single-lane road. A bridge is blown. Men lie cold and the column halts. Engineers race against the dark. Patton's plan depends on time. Time fails and delays multiply. If the engineers cannot replace the bridge, fuel will be late and the spearhead will stall. It is a single-point failure with strategic consequences. For an hour, the situation is uncertain. Commanders call staff to the radio. Mechanics work knee-deep in freezing water. Men shout into the wind. It looks like the kind of delay that will stop an army. Then the engineers succeed. They install a bypass. The convoy moves. Patton's timetable holds. The reversal. By late December, German forces, exhausted and lacking fuel, launch desperate attacks and then run out of momentum. Their timetable collapses 3 to 4 days sooner than they planned. Patton's rapid counterblow cuts lines of resupply. The Germans are forced to withdraw and then retreat. The Bulge is contained. Casualties and cost. The Battle of the Bulge becomes the bloodiest for the U.S. in World War II. Approximately 19,000 Americans killed, over 47,000 wounded, and about 23,000 missing or captured. German losses are heavy too. Tens of thousands killed or captured and hundreds of tanks and trucks destroyed. But without Patton's relief of Bastogne, casualties and losses would have been far greater. The strategic picture could have briefly shifted. If you find this kind of forgotten history, where planning, personality, and timely action combine, as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage, preparation, and decisive leadership deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. What Patton did in those 11 days reverberates beyond Bastogne. First, it forces a hard lesson into Allied doctrine. Intelligence matters only when a commander is willing to act on it. Schaef's post-battle inquiries underscore a bitter truth. The data were there, 15 divisions missing, but interpreted under the wrong assumption. Analysts saw what they expected to see. Patton and Koch saw what the evidence actually said. Second, the German command is shaken. Their timetable assumed that Allied reaction would be measured in a week, perhaps longer. After the war, German officers concede that Patton's speed disrupted plans. General Gunter Blumentritt called Patton the most aggressive of Allied panzer generals. Otto von Manteufel's subordinate notes that the Americans had anticipated their move. The psychological blow is as important as the physical one. The Germans had planned exploitation. They encountered preparation. Third, an operational doctrine evolves. After the Bulge, Allied staffs reassess reserve deployment and contingency planning. They accept that quiet sectors are not impregnable and that rapid redeployment requires preposition logistics. The idea of standing contingency plans spreads. Rail and road nodes are cataloged, fuel depots are organized for rapid diversion, and engineers rehearse bridge work. Patton's 11 days become a case study in every staff college. How a commander can transform intelligence into operational advantage. What they didn't know at the time was how fragile assumptions can be in wartime. The Allies had grown confident, too confident, about German exhaustion. That complacency almost strangled them. The true impact of Patton's preparations wouldn't be fully appreciated until historians pieced together the chain: Koch's intelligence, Patton's trust, the secret contingency plans, and the execution under brutal conditions. The ripple extends into people's lives. Soldiers who would have been captured return home because a corridor opened. Families remain intact. Entire regiments avoid annihilation. Those are statistical outcomes until you meet survivors who remember the arrival of armor like rescue. A hand pushed into the void and pulled them back. You think of Colonel Oscar W. Koch, the analyst who read patterns and risked being labeled alarmist. He does not become a household name, but inside the army his work is recognized. He teaches a generation of intelligence officers to distrust comfortable narratives and to press for contingency action. Koch's career does not end in fanfare. It ends in the quiet satisfaction that data mattered. You think of George Patton, stubborn, theatrical, implacable. He does not receive a special medal for Bastogne's relief beyond the general praise that history accords him. Patton's legend grows complicated. He is praised for audacity and criticized for abrasive style. But his willingness to trust an analyst, to disrupt his own offensive momentum, and to order a rapid pivot is the defining act of his December 1944. He does what the room of generals could not imagine. He turns warning into salvation. You think of the men on the ground, elements of the 4th Armored Division, the 26th Infantry, the 82nd Airborne as they redeploy, the drivers, the medics, the engineers who lay down bridges in the snow, the paratroopers of the 101st inside Bastogne. Names become faces: First Lieutenant Charles Cobra King Barger, whose tank punches into Bastogne; Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, who answers with nuts; the anonymous private who hands a canteen through a frozen slit in a foxhole. After the war, critics ask whether Patton's gamble was reckless. Historians debate whether the relief could have been achieved differently. Scholars parse Eisenhower's role, Bradley's caution, and Schaiff's failure. But the central lesson remains simple and human. Intelligence only matters when someone believes it enough to act. Preparation only works when leaders trust their planners and force that trust into execution. To this day, the Ardennes preparations, Colonel Koch's analysis, and Patton's 11 secret days of contingency work are taught in staff colleges as an exemplar of anticipatory leadership. They are proof that timely action can convert surprise into opportunity. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing stories like this from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served in World War II or in intelligence. Your voice keeps these memories alive. Thank you for ensuring that George S. Patton, Colonel Oscar W. Koch, and the 100,000+ men of 3rd Army who turned those 11 days of preparation into a lifeline do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.